There's a kind of quiet that doesn't feel peaceful. It's the quiet of sitting in your room at 11 at night, scrolling through photos of people laughing at dinner tables you weren't invited to. It's the quiet of reading a text from someone who says, we should hang out sometime, and knowing somehow that sometime will never come. It's the quiet that settles into your chest when you realize that you haven't had a real conversation, not small talk, not emojis, not a reply to a story, a real conversation in weeks, maybe longer. You weren't born for this kind of quiet. No one was. There's a chemical in your brain called oxytocin. Scientists sometimes call it the bonding hormone, or the love chemical, or the trust molecule. Those names sound nice, almost too nice, like something you'd see on a greeting card. But here's what those names actually mean in the most practical, everyday sense. Oxytocin is the reason a hug from the right person can make your whole body exhale. It's the reason sitting next to someone in comfortable silence feels different from sitting alone. It's the reason your chest tightens, not with pain exactly, but with something close to it, when you go too long without being truly seen by another human being. Oxytocin doesn't care about how many followers you have. It doesn't care about how many group chats you're in. It doesn't count your contacts. It responds to something much simpler and much harder to find these days. It responds to presence, real presence. The kind where someone looks at you and you know not because they said it, but because you can feel it, that they're actually there. And that is becoming rare. Let me tell you something that might sound strange at first. We are living in the most connected era in human history. You can video call someone on the other side of the planet in 2 seconds. You can send a voice note, a meme, a reaction, a heart, a thumbs up, a fire emoji, all before your coffee gets cold. And yet, loneliness. Studies keep showing the same uncomfortable truth. People are lonelier than they've ever been. Not just older people, not just people who live alone, young people, people with roommates, people with partners, people with thousands of followers who post every meal and every sunset and still feel at the end of the day like no one really knows them. How is that possible? The answer lives in the space between connection and contact. Contact is easy now. Too easy, maybe. You tap a screen and someone appears. You type a message and it arrives instantly. But contact is not connection. Contact is data. Connection is feeling. And your brain knows the difference, even when your habits don't. When you hug someone you trust, really hug them, not a side hug, not a wave from across the room, your brain releases oxytocin. When a friend listens to you without checking their phone, without waiting for their turn to talk, without offering a solution when all you needed was to be heard, your brain releases oxytocin. When you sit with someone and neither of you feels the need to fill the silence, oxytocin moves through you like a slow, warm exhale. It tells your nervous system, you are safe, you are not alone, you belong here. Now think about what happens when that doesn't exist for days or weeks or months at a time. Your brain doesn't just miss it, your brain starts to alarm, because human beings are not wired for isolation. We never were. For hundreds of thousands of years, belonging to a group wasn't a luxury. It was survival. If you were cast out of the tribe, you were in danger. Your brain built an entire alarm system around the fear of disconnection, and that system is still running inside you right now. When you feel lonely, that's not weakness. That's not being dramatic. That's your brain doing exactly what it was designed to do, telling you that something vital is missing. But here's where modern life gets complicated. Because when that alarm goes off, when you feel the H of loneliness, the things most available to you aren't the things that actually help. What's most available is your phone. So you open Instagram, you open TikTok, you open a group chat, you scroll, you watch other people live, and for a moment, the loneliness numbs just a tiny bit. Your brain gets a small hit of dopamine. That's the reward chemical, the one that fires when something new appears on your screen. It feels like relief, but it isn't connection. It's the illusion of connection. And when you put the phone down, the loneliness comes back. Sometimes it comes back worse, because now, on top of feeling alone, you also feel like you shouldn't feel alone. You just saw 100 people having fun. Why aren't you? That cycle, loneliness, phone, dopamine, more loneliness, is one of the quietest traps of modern life. And it's not your fault for falling into it. It was designed to be easy, to be automatic, to feel just enough like connection that you keep reaching for it instead of reaching for something real. But real connection requires something that screens can't offer. It requires vulnerability. It requires the willingness to sit across from another person and let them see you, not the curated version of you, not the funny version, not the I'm fine version, but the version that's tired, confused, scared, unsure. That kind of openness triggers oxytocin in a way that no notification ever will. But it also requires courage, because opening up means risking the possibility that the other person won't meet you there. And that risk is why so many of us avoid it. I think many people don't even realize they're avoiding it. They think they're just busy. They think they're just tired. They think they just need a weekend to themselves. And sometimes that's true, but other times, I'm just tired is the polite version of I don't know how to reach out anymore. And I'm just busy is the acceptable way of saying I've been hurt before and I don't want to risk it again. And I'm fine alone is sometimes, not always, but sometimes, the brave face you wear over a loneliness that has been there so long, it started to feel normal. If any of that sounds familiar, I want you to know something. You are not broken. You are not bad at relationships. You are not too much or too little or too anything. You are a human being whose brain is asking for something it was designed to need. And the fact that it's hard to find right now doesn't mean it's gone forever. Let me tell you a little about what loneliness actually does to your body, because I think it helps to understand that this isn't just in your head, or rather, it is in your head, but in the most physical, chemical, measurable way possible. When you go a long time without meaningful social connection, your brain starts producing more cortisol. That's your stress hormone, the same one that floods you when you're running late for work or arguing with someone you love. Your body doesn't distinguish between the stress of a deadline and the stress of disconnection. To your nervous system, loneliness is a threat. And when cortisol stays elevated for 2 periods of time, everything gets harder. Sleep gets worse. Focus gets worse. Your patience gets shorter. Small things irritate you more than they should. You start snapping at people you care about, then feel guilty about it, then pull away more, which makes the loneliness deeper. It's a spiral, a quiet, invisible spiral that a lot of people are caught in without even knowing it. And here's what makes it even trickier. When cortisol is high and oxytocin is low, your brain starts to interpret neutral social situations as threatening. A friend doesn't text back for a few hours, and instead of thinking they're probably busy, you think they don't care about me. Someone doesn't invite you to something, and instead of thinking it must have been a small gathering, you think they didn't want me there. Your brain, starved of bonding chemicals and flooded with stress chemicals, starts reading rejection into everything. And that makes you pull back even more, which makes the loneliness even worse, which raises the cortisol even higher. It's not a character flaw, it's chemistry. But chemistry can be changed. Now, I'm not going to tell you to just go out and make friends. That advice is technically correct and practically useless, like telling someone who's hungry to just go eat. The question isn't whether you should connect with people. The question is how, especially when connecting feels exhausting or scary or like something you've forgotten how to do. So let me offer some gentle places to start. The first one might surprise you because it doesn't involve another person at all. It involves your body. Physical movement, even gentle movement, even a 10-minute walk outside, has a direct effect on both cortisol and oxytocin. Walking lowers your stress hormones. Sunlight boosts serotonin, which helps stabilize your mood. And if you happen to walk with someone, a neighbor, a coworker on break, a family member, the combination of movement and presence creates exactly the kind of low-pressure, side-by-side bonding that oxytocin loves. You don't have to have a deep conversation. You just have to be in the same space, moving in the same direction, at the same pace. There's something ancient and comforting about that, and your brain knows it. The second is something I think a lot of people underestimate. Eye contact. Not the intense, staring kind. The normal kind. The kind where you're ordering coffee and you actually look at the person making it and say thank you and mean it. The kind where you're talking to a coworker and you don't glance at your screen in the middle of their sentence. These micro moments of genuine attention, they add up. They create tiny deposits of trust. And trust is what oxytocin feeds on. You don't have to pour your heart out to everyone you meet. But when you offer someone your full attention, even for 30 seconds, something shifts in them and in you. The third is the hardest one, and I saved it for last because I think it matters the most. It's being honest about how you feel. Not to everyone, not on social media, but to at least one person. Maybe it's a friend you haven't talked to in a while. Maybe it's a sibling. Maybe it's someone you trust but have been keeping at arm's length because you didn't want to be a burden. I know the fear. I know the voice that says they have their own problems, or they'll think I'm being dramatic, or what if I open up and they don't care? That voice is loud, but it's also very often wrong, because most people, most of the time, are waiting for someone to go first. Most people are sitting in their own version of quiet, hoping someone will break it. You could be the one who breaks it. And I know what you might be thinking. What if I try and it doesn't work? What if I reach out and they don't respond the way I need? What if I'm still lonely, even after I try? Those are real fears, and I won't pretend they're unfounded. Connection is not guaranteed. Not every attempt will land. Not every person will meet you where you are. But the alternative, staying in the quiet, staying behind the screen, staying numb, that has a cost too. And it's a cost that compounds over time. Here's something I've come to believe, and maybe it will resonate with you. Loneliness doesn't mean you're unwanted. It means you're human. It means your brain is functioning exactly as it should, telling you that you need something real. And the courage it takes to listen to that signal, to actually hear it instead of scrolling past it, that's the first step. Not the step where everything changes. Just the first one. The one where you admit to yourself that being alone isn't the same as being at peace. That keeping busy isn't the same as being connected. That being strong enough to handle everything alone doesn't mean you have to. There's a word in Japanese, tsundoku, that means buying books and letting them pile up without reading them. There should be a word, I think, for gathering people around you and still feeling like no one is really there. We live in an era of social tsundoku. We accumulate connections like bookmarks we never open. And the tragedy isn't that we don't have people in our lives. The tragedy is that we've forgotten how to be present with them. So here's what I want to leave you with. You don't have to fix your entire social life today. You don't have to call 5 people and bare your soul. You don't have to host a dinner party or join a club or do anything that feels like a performance. Start smaller than that. Start so small it almost feels like nothing. Text one person you've been thinking about. Not a meme, not a forwarded video, just a simple message, "Hey, I was thinking about you. How are you doing?" And then, this is the important part, actually read their response. Actually care about the answer. That's it. That's the whole exercise. One message, one moment of genuine attention. Because oxytocin doesn't need grand gestures. It doesn't need a perfect moment. It just needs realness, a genuine voice, a sincere question, a willingness to stay for a moment instead of scrolling away. If you've been feeling the kind of quiet I described at the beginning, the kind that sits in your chest and follows you from room to room, I want you to know that I understand. Not in an abstract clinical way, in the way that comes from having been there, from knowing what it's like to have 100 conversations in your phone and still feel like no one really hears you. And I want you to know that it doesn't have to stay that way. Not because I'm promising some magical transformation, but because the human brain is remarkably responsive to even the smallest shifts. One real conversation can lower your cortisol. One genuine laugh with someone you trust can release enough oxytocin to change how your entire evening feels. One moment of being truly seen can remind you of something you might have forgotten, that you are not too much, that you are not too broken, and that you were never, ever meant to do this alone. Humans are not built for isolation. We are built for each other. For the messy, imperfect, sometimes disappointing, sometimes breathtaking experience of being known by another person. And no amount of screen time can replace that. But the good news is that it doesn't take much to begin. A phone call, a knock on a door, an honest answer to the question, "How are you?" instead of the automatic, "I'm fine." That's where it starts. Not with a grand plan, not with a life overhaul, just with one small, brave, real moment. Thank you for spending this time here with me. I know that even watching a video like this is a kind of reaching out, a quiet acknowledgement that something in you is asking to be heard. And I hear you. If this video made you feel even slightly less alone, I'd love it if you'd share it with someone who might need it. Sometimes the most powerful thing you can do for another person is to say, without words, I thought of you. That alone is a kind of oxytocin. That alone is a kind of bridge. And if no one has told you lately, you belong here. You really do. Take care of yourself. I'll see you in the next one.